former acting Homeland Security Secretary under President Trump, Chad Wolf, who's also the executive vice president of the America First Policy Institute. Thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
Immigration remains a big issue. What do you see as the main accomplishments or achievements of the administration here about 70 days in? And do you see anything that they could do better, or as they themselves said in that case, that they're doing erroneously?
Yeah, well, look, there's been a lot of action, obviously, taken by the president and his team early in this administration. And so you just have to look at, obviously, the number of border apprehensions have fallen probably to an all-time low. I think over a 94 or 95% improvement over the Biden administration, as well as removals, right, and deportations from the interior of the country. We saw during the Biden administration a lot of removals at the border, but not a lot of removals from the interior in the country, places like New York City, and Chicago, Dallas,
on
and
that
elsewhere.
distinction,
So what those two areas, I think.
Let me ask you there, and then we'll get in deeper. But what do you see as a distinction there for folks who are, you ran DHS, you had a lot of experience. What are you getting at? Are you saying that the interiors is more important, or that it represents some more assertive strategy?
Well, there's a lot of authority to remove individuals that you pick up right at the border, what we call border returns or pushbacks across that border. And so the Trump administration used that authority. The Biden administration used that authority. But when you really talk about removals, you talk about finding individuals, criminal illegal aliens and others that have been here for some period of time and removing them, those on a final order of removal, those are likely you're going to find those in the interior of the country. And so that's really where you get, the biggest bang for the buck. And we've seen more removals from the interior of the country over these last several months than we had previously.
Okay. Wanted to understand your point there. And let's stipulate that if you target and find people correctly for the right reason, or they have more danger or criminal record and they're inside the country, you could see why that would be an enforcement priority. Then you have what I mentioned, which is deporting the wrong people, while also potentially violating due process, according to the judge. We'll see what the appeals show. But this headline, the man sent to El Salvador, do you view that as wrong? And do you think other people who are legally here, whether they're legally here under immigration rules or American citizens themselves, now have to worry about being thrown on a plane without due process?
Well, I don't think so. And again, I would say that I agree with the Trump administration, which they have said, I believe in a court filing, that it was an error to remove this individual. But I think it's important really to dive into this individual's background. He has a final order of removal. He also has a withholding of removal just specifically to El Salvador. So the error obviously is removing him back to a country that a judge says you can't remove him to. But this individual doesn't have legal permanent status here in the United States. He has a final order of removal.
I'll let you finish, but
and the government says that he has ties to MS-13.
But that's because of a judge, whether the government likes it or not, finding there could be danger to him. And the American system doesn't just send people back violating against a court order to a place where they might be hurt, right?
Sure, and that same judge back in 2019 also said that he had ties to MS-13, but we also hear a variety of folks saying, well, he doesn't have ties to MS-13. So either you're going to rely on a judge's opinion for all things or you're not. And in this case, again, I would agree with you. It's an error to send him back to that country that he has a withholding of removal to. But again, he has a final order of removal. He has no legal right to remain in the United States under that final order. He just simply should not have been processed back to El Salvador.
Understand the distinction you're making. And then how do you assure others if there are these kind of errors? And as you know, flights took off without what was the apparent due process. What's to stop the government from doing that to other people? And they say, oh, we didn't know it was an American.
Well, again, I don't know that I agree with you about the lack of due process. But again, that's going to be up to the government to say, here are the assurances that we've put in place. My guess, since it is being litigated in court, they're going to have to lay that out to that judge and to others to say, here's the process that we go through. And like any process, there are going to be errors from time to time. I'm not saying that that's an excuse or anything, but that's the reality of it. But the question for the government is, how do they minimize those? And then what's the recourse if an error is identified?
Sure. Although I think the whole point of having the system work with the process up front is that error is discovered before someone is in a foreign prison or whatnot. I know your time is But go ahead if you want to respond.
But again, the individuals that we're talking about here are designated terror groups, MS-13, TDA, and others. These are terrorist groups designated by the president, which gives, and again, this is being litigated, but again, gives him wide latitude and authority to remove these individuals out of the country. And I think that's the basis of, obviously, the court case and other things. So, yes, I do agree with you. We need to make sure that we are removing the right people to the right place, and that's incumbent on the government to do that. But the latitude and the discretion that the president has is I would say, is wide in this case.
All right, and I'm sure we could go in even more depth. I want to get you on other things with your limited time. There was the very controversial treatment of this Tufts University student, Rumeysa Öztürk, Turkish national. The video, I think, has been seen. I'm sure you're familiar with it. You have these federal agents who, in this case, have their identities concealed and are trying to remove her. When you look at that level of tactic, and then you also have a pattern, or perhaps a anecdotal pattern, if I want to be as charitable as possible, where there are allegations that some people might be getting harsher treatment because of their speech, because of the positions they take, which anyone could disagree with, and yet isn't that the whole point of America, including people who are visiting? And so the allegations, and I've got the headlines up here, are that the administration may be going beyond its lawful power, which is quite broad in the immigration area, as I've told viewers, to potentially target people for the stances they take. So my question to you on this rather controversial case is twofold. One, with your expertise, do you view those measures as valid, what we saw in her treatment? And two, would it concern you if there was a pattern of targeting people because of what they said, of what they believe?
Well, let me take maybe the first question first, which is about the tactics. You showed the video of law enforcement coming up.
And we can put the video up.
I've seen just a small portion of that video. I've seen a small portion of that video. And look, I've heard this when I was at the Department of Homeland Security about the tactics law enforcement uses. They use certain tactics to not only keep the officer safe, but to keep the suspect safe as well. So if they rolled in there with blaring sirens and other things, there are other issues at play here. So when you're doing some undercover work and you want to pick someone up and you try to do that in a safe setting, there are certain tactics they use. From what I can tell in the very limited portion that I've seen from that video, that's what it looks like that they're doing. Now, as far as students being removed here, I think it's important to remember, it's important for your viewers to remember, whether you're here on a student visa or an LPR, these are benefits provided to you by the United States government. You don't have a right to be here. There's no right given to you.